Previously, unbound by the Alpha Keal and Rylan, are looking for who attacked Selen. Rylan and Selen are getting closer, and who is the big wolf with the mismatched eyes? At the Iron Gate, the threat unfolds. Selen and Rylan stood at the old Iron Gate as the garden's peaceful energy shifted. The night pressed in, heavy and electric. That chilling howl, so deeply animal, so brimming with intent, seemed to vibrate down to Selen's bones, and though she couldn't explain why, it felt hauntingly familiar. Goosebumps prickled her arms. Rylan's posture was tense. "This isn't normal," he whispered, angling his body to shield Selen from the dark beyond the fence. "You hear it too?" Selen nodded, heart racing. She didn't fully understand how she recognized the threat, only that something inside her responded. A sensation both foreign and known, as if she'd heard this sound in a half-remembered dream or a fragmented childhood memory that never quite made sense. Her breath caught. She was suddenly aware that whatever was out there was not a stray animal, but something connected to the world she was being drawn into step by step. Wind rustled through the hedges, the air rich with the scent of damp earth and night-blooming flowers. Another growl, closer this time, sent Rylan's eyes darting through the gloom. "We should go," he whispered, voice taut with urgency. But Selen couldn't move. Her feet felt rooted to the earth, not just with fear, but with an inexplicable pull, like the night itself was waiting for her to acknowledge a deeper truth. And for a split second, just beyond the iron bars, she caught the glint of mix-match eyes, one golden, one brown in the shadows, eyes that seemed to look into her past as much as her present. The chill in the air deepened as the growl echoed across the garden. Rylan's senses sharpened, his protective instinct overtaking every hesitation. He positioned himself squarely in front of Selen, his hand steady but urgent on her arm. "We need to move now," Rylan murmured, his eyes not leaving the shadowy patch beyond the gate. He scanned for danger, every muscle tense and ready. "Stay close to me. If anything happens, you run back to the house. Don't look back." Selen nodded, anxiety tightening her chest. Rylan's demeanor had changed, no trace of their earlier ease, only fierce focus. He guided her away from the gate a few careful steps, his own heartbeat thudding in her ears. Another growl, closer, almost daring. Rylan's gaze flickered from the gate to Selen, then to the moonlit path. He moved with quick certainty, determined to put distance between them and the unseen threat. But Selen sensed he was bracing for a confrontation, resolved not to let anything through the gate that might harm her. As they retreated, Rylan kept one arm extended toward the iron gate, shielding Selen and scanning the darkness for any sign, a flash of gold and brown in the night that lingered on the edge of memory. As Rylan urged her away from the iron gate, Selen hesitated. There was something in that growl that wouldn't let her go. Each step back seemed to thicken the air, a tangle of fear and an unfamiliar yearning coiling inside her. She cast one last, lingering glance at the darkness beyond the bars, heart pounding with a strange urgency. A memory flickered at the edge of her mind, not clear, but heavy with emotion. The mismatched glint, one golden, one brown, caught her eyes before vanishing deeper into the shadows. It was more than curiosity that rooted Selen to the spot. It was as if her soul recognized something she wasn't supposed to remember. She heard Rylan's voice calling, distant and muffled, but the world contracted to just her and the unseen presence at the gate. Deep inside, instinct she never understood stirred, senses stretching beyond human fear, pricking her skin and urging her closer, not away. The urge to move forward tugged at her, but for now she stayed, breath shallow and mind alive with questions. The garden was no longer a place of comfort, but a threshold, and something inside her whispered that tonight, if she crossed it, nothing would be the same. Just as Selen lingered, torn between fear and the strange call of the shadows beyond the gate, a sudden ripple of energy swept through the garden. Rylan's tense warning was cut short by the sound of swift, deliberate footsteps and a low, commanding snarl, a presence that announced itself before coming fully into view. Moonlight revealed Keal emerging from the darkness, the alpha unmistakable in silhouette, power radiating from every controlled movement. His eyes swept the garden, unwavering and fierce, as he stepped protectively between Selen and the threat outside the iron bars. The air seemed to bend around him, heavy with authority and a building sense of danger. Rylan let out a breath, relief and wariness mingling in his posture. Keal's gaze landed on Selen, searching her face for signs of fear or injury, before zeroing in on the barely glimpsed figure beyond the gate. Another growl. Keal bared his teeth, letting a warning growl rise from deep in his chest, a promise of protection and reprisal if the intruder dared to cross. The night held its breath, the garden caught between confrontation and retreat. As Selen and Rylan returned to the house, Lyra, Maris, Darius, Corvin, and others quickly converge at the entryway. Their faces are sharp with concern and suspicion, voices overlapping as questions rain down. What happened? Were you attacked? Did you see who it was? Why were you outside the boundary at this hour? Selen, is someone after you? Keal stands at her side, expression unreadable to most, eyes tracking every reaction. Only Rylan, closest to him, might see the tightness in Keal's jaw and the storm in his gaze, a silent warning that he senses the intruder's true target is Selen. But Keal holds his response back, projecting control. Everyone inside now. I want answers, but first, secure the doors. We'll speak once the grounds are checked. As the group moves inside, Keal lingers a brief second longer, eyes sweeping the dark outside before closing the door with more force than necessary. Whatever his suspicions, they will wait for a private word with Rylan, and possibly Selen, away from the pack's eyes. The air in the main hall was thick with tension as Rylan stood before Darius and Lyra. Corvin paced near the door, sharp-eyed, while Keal stood apart, arms crossed, unreadable. Darius's voice cut through the uneasy silence. Why was she outside? His glare was cold, always skimming past Rylan to where, beyond the half-open door, Maris kept Selen waiting in the hall. Lyra's eyes were ice. And why with you, Rylan? We made it clear she's not to be wandering. Not with our patrols thin, Rylan's jaw clenched. We were just walking. She needed air. I thought it would calm her. That's all. Darius leaned forward, lip curling. So you ignore orders for a stroll? Or is she getting you to break the rules for her already? Lyra chimed in, sharp and eager. Maybe she's signaling to whatever's out there. Did she tell you what she saw? Or who she's expecting? Keal's gaze flickered, giving nothing away. Corvin watched all of them, silent but attentive. Rylan shook his head. No one is signaling for anything. There was a growl, some kind of wolf at the gate. I saw it. Selen saw it. That's all. Darius spat. She shouldn't have been out. Next time, she stays where she belongs. And you remember your place, Rylan? A pause, heavy and dangerous. Lyra added, for all to hear. If anything else comes hunting tonight, we don't need to wonder how it found us. Rylan glared, biting back a retort as Maris appeared, and led Selen quickly away, the door clicking shut behind them. Outside, the pack fanned out. Inside, rivalries simmered, and Selen, once again, was left to wonder if she would ever be trusted. Selen sat alone in the dimly lit room, the muffled voices of the pack barely reaching her through the thick walls. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself, skin still tingling from the cold, though it was the memory of those strange eyes in the dark, one gold and one brown, that wouldn't leave her. She didn't know who or what watched her there, but the feeling was raw, as if she'd been seen, chosen, even claimed. Lyra's harsh accusation echoed in her mind, a bitter reminder that trust here was thin as ice. Why did danger always seem to find her? Was it just her presence, or something in her blood that called to the wild? Her only answer was the ache of loneliness, sharper tonight than it had ever been. Darius paced the length of the main hall, tension vibrating in every step. This was his territory, his pack, his house, and an outsider had skirted his patrols not once but twice. Each new breach was a personal affront, a challenge to his power and pride. He flexed his hands, already plotting how to double the perimeter, to sniff out every weakness and plug it before the moon rose again. No one threatened Darius in his own home. He'd see to that, even if it meant shaking every secret from Rylan, Selen, or anyone else standing too close to trouble. Rylan hovered outside Selen's door, knuckles white at his sides. Fury smoldered just beneath his skin, not at her, but at the way Lyra and Darius had circled, eager for blood. The suspicion in their voices, the doubt in their eyes, made him wish he'd defied them outright and kept Selen hidden away. What was wrong with needing air? With needing a moment of quiet after days spent trapped by suspicion? He set his jaw, promising himself that he wouldn't let them push Selen out, not while he had breath left to defend her, and not while Keal watched everything in heavy silence. Lyra watched the doors close behind Selen, her lips curving in a cold little smile. Trouble followed that woman everywhere. She didn't need proof. It was obvious from the way even the wolves prowled more restlessly when Selen was near. Let them call her a maid, a witch, an outsider. It only made Lyra's case stronger. The sooner Selen was gone, the sooner the pack could get back to normal. Every careless step Selen made outside was another excuse, a nail in her own coffin. Lyra would keep the pressure up until Darius saw sense and acted. Keal stood at the edge of the main hall, outwardly impassive but inwardly clawed raw. He'd recognized the flash in Selena's eyes as she came through the door, a silent plea, and something more. His wolf bristled with possessive rage. Selen, his mate, had been in danger, and not with him. Rylan's nearness grated, every instinct burned to demand answers, to ensure no one ever got between them again. But with Lyra and Darius circling, Keal suppressed the urge, masking old fury beneath cold calm. Still, he vowed, at the first chance, he'd confront Rylan, demand the truth, and remind Selen, gently or not, who she was, and what that meant for both of them. Maris lingered at the edges of the bustling hall, watching, listening, blending in. Others might have thought her timid or peripheral, but that was her greatest strength. She caught every flicker of anger from Darius, every calculating glance Lyra sent Selena's way, but all of it mattered most to only one wolf. When the house quieted, when the time was right, she would slip out and deliver her report to Corbin. Not just a name in her heart, but the alpha she truly served, the one with the mismatched eyes who haunted the border. Where the pack saw chaos, Maris saw opportunity, loyal, watchful, ready to do what her real master required. The house was restless with energy that refused to settle. Sharp whispers filled the halls. Every door was double-checked, every shadow eyed with suspicion. Patrols rotated across the grounds, feet and paws silent but urgent on the dewy grass, as Darius barked orders with barely leashed fury. Inside, Lyra prowled the corridors, quick to snap at anyone who lingered near a window. "Keep away from the glass." "We don't give whatever's out there a show," she warned, her glare daring anyone to defy her. Corvin returned from the border, face grim. "Nothing but old scent trails," he reported, but his eyes lingered on Darius, waiting for the signal to escalate their search if needed. Rylan drifted through the common area, shoulders tensed, his gaze seeking Selene's closed door. He ignored the whispers that followed him. He knew trust was thin tonight. Keal, silent and brooding near the hearth, watched every movement with a predator's focus. Even at rest, his body was wound tight, a thread ready to snap. Even Maris, usually invisible, was stopped often for status updates. No one took chances now. Every wolf felt it, the sense that something still watched, that the night pressed too close to the walls. The pack was unified in wariness, but divided in suspicion. They waited for another sign, for a howl or shadow at the edge. Every moment stretched taut, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Selene curled up on the narrow bed, blankets pulled close, but offering no comfort. Moonlight leaked through the thin curtains, painting restless patterns across the ceiling. She tried to steady her breathing, but her thoughts spun out of control. The eyes in the darkness haunted her, a wild, intent gaze, peering straight through her flesh down to some hidden core she barely understood. She still felt the echo of being seen, chosen, and it both terrified and fascinated her. She didn't know what the wolf wanted, but a part of her was certain the answer lived in whatever part of her past she couldn't remember or dared not touch. The words from the pack's interrogation replayed over and over. Lyra's sharp suspicion, Darius's fury, even the tense silence from Keal. She ached with the knowledge that, no matter how blameless she'd been tonight, she'd never truly belong. Not here, not with them. Outside, the house creaked, and distant howls rose and faded. Selene squeezed her eyes shut, wishing for sleep, but her body remained tight, every sense alert for another brush with danger. She let her thoughts drift, raw and unguarded. What if the wolf came again? What if she was the reason for every shadow and whisper, just as Lyra claimed? She pressed her face into the pillow and swore silently to herself, not to be caught unaware, not to trust too quickly, and not to let fear swallow whatever was left of her spirit. The house was still, moonlight streaking along the floorboards, when Keal found Rylan alone in the side room. The silence between them was thick with unsaid things, the kind that had been building for days. Keal closed the door behind him. His words were soft, but his eyes were hard. "You asked me before, who Selena was to me." "I lied." Rylan looked up, suspicion and hope colliding in his stare. "So tell me now, what is she?" Kyle's fists flexed at his sides. "She's my mate." "The wolf, the one with the mismatched eyes, he's here for her. That's why I came back, because I knew, the moment I scented her, she was mine. It's a bond I can't change, even if I wanted to." Rylan stood there, silent, words caught in his throat. He felt the truth strike like a blade. Every longing glance, every moment of hope, now shattered before him. There was no place for him beside Selene, not with the mate bond sealed by fate and nature. His heart twisted painfully, breath shaky as he tried to meet Kyle's gaze. Kyle's voice was rough, regret thick in every word. "I never meant to hurt you. I know what you feel for her, but I can't fight this, Rylan. Neither can you." Rylan shook his head, barely containing the anguish that threatened to rise. "You should have told me sooner, Keal. She deserves a choice." "So did I." Kyle's jaw worked, silent apology lingering as he stepped away. Rylan pressed his lips tightly together, gave a single curt nod, and left the room, leaving Keal with his guilt and the cold weight of truth. Rylan slipped through the quiet halls long before dawn, his footsteps muffled by thick rugs and heavier regret. He paused outside Selene's door, fighting the urge to say one last word, to let her know how much she meant to him, how much she would always mean. But he knew it would only make things harder for both of them. He leaned his forehead against the cool wood, whispering words meant for no ears but his own. "I tried, Selen. I would have fought the world for you, but I can't fight fate." A dull ache throbbed behind his eyes, and every memory, her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she trusted him with a look, washed over him. He wished Keal had lied just a little longer, or that the bond could break for a heartbeat. But he'd seen the truth in Keal's face, in the tremble of Selene's voice, whenever her eyes strayed to the alpha. Steeling himself, Rylan turned away. He left no note, no trace but his absence. Every step he took away from the warmth of the house felt colder, each footfall carrying him further into the lonely dark. He headed for the woods, driven by a single purpose, to track the wolf with the mismatched eyes, and prove, at least to himself, that he was more than just a shadow in someone else's story. Selene awoke to an emptiness she couldn't at first explain. The house felt different, quieter, heavier, as if some gentle presence had slipped away during the night. She reached for the softest hope that Rylan would knock, or for a reassuring smile or a sarcastic quip, but only silence greeted her. Something inside her twisted. She pushed from her bed, still dressed in yesterday's wrinkled clothes, and hurried to the hallway. His scent, always a comfort in the pack's shifting world, had faded. When she found his room empty, the bed unslept in, her heart thudded painfully. She searched for signs, anything to say he'd return, a note or a word left behind. There was nothing but the hollow ache pulsing in her chest. Grief and regret warred with confusion. "Why did he leave without saying goodbye?" she whispered. In that moment, Selene felt more alone than ever. She pressed a fist to her heart, trying to swallow her sorrow, but the day felt suddenly sharper, every possibility edged with loss. Keal rose early, senses prickling at the change in the house. It didn't take long to realize Rylan was gone. Absence was a force that pressed against the walls and echoed in every silent corner. He could still feel the tension of last night's confession, the raw pain in Rylan's eyes, and the guilt that had chased him through unsettled dreams. Keal knew the bond he shared with Selene was unbreakable, destined, but fate was cruel, and loving someone almost felt like a crime when another heart was left shattered in the wake. He wondered if Selene had found Rylan's absence yet, if she would guess why he'd left. The mate bond burned inside him, fierce and demanding, but it did nothing to salve the wounds between friends. Keal touched the doorframe, steadying himself. There was still the mismatched wolf to face, still secrets to sort, but for a moment, all he felt was loss, and a wish that things could have ended differently. Keal lingered by the window, watching the woods breathe out mist in the morning light. He'd always known, long before he ever claimed Selene as his mate, that Rylan loved her. The knowledge was a quiet ache, one he carried through every day, every pack meeting, every moment he caught Rylan's gaze drawn to her like a moth to flame. His bond with Selene was destiny, written deep in his bones. But that didn't erase the guilt. He'd tried bedding Lyra, grasping distraction to mute the pull, anything to make fate less cruel, to give Rylan a chance to move on. It hadn't worked. It only added distance and doubt, tangled the pack in rivalry. Seeing Rylan's heartbreak last night made it worse. Keal wondered if, somewhere deep, his wolf mourned the friendship lost, fractured by a bond neither man had chosen. He wished he could fix it, wished he could explain that loyalty didn't mean absence of pain. For all his power, Keal felt helpless to heal what had been broken. Destiny, too, often felt like a thief, robbing everyone of choices. He looked out at the trees, wishing for forgiveness, wishing Rylan would find comfort, and knowing, for now, all he could offer was silence. Darius stood on the veranda, gaze raking the restless patrols pacing the boundary. 2 intrusions in as many nights, Rylan vanished, Keal growing distant, Selen still drawing trouble like blood draws sharks. For all his outward authority, the pack felt on the verge of splintering. He made a mental note to keep Corvin close, and Lyra in his ear. Now wasn't the time for divided loyalty, especially with outsiders smelling weakness. One thing was certain: if Selene's presence brought more danger, Darius would do what it took to protect his power, even if it meant sacrificing a single pawn for the good of the many. Lyra watched the fallout unfold with satisfaction, masked by feigned concern. Rylan's exit gave her leverage, another example to cite when poisoning Darius's mind against Selen. She kept to Keal's side when possible, whispering warnings about fractured trust, questioning Selene's motives beneath every gentle word. Still, a sliver of fear wormed through her heart. If the stranger truly wanted Selen, what did it mean for all of them? Lyra's resolve hardened. She couldn't afford to be sentimental. This was survival, and she intended to come out on top. Corvin doubled his patrols, jaw clenched, every muscle tensed for a sign of the outsider's return. He noticed Darius's gaze sharpening, Lyra's manipulations, Keal's withdrawn silence. He didn't care for pack politics. His focus was the safety of the grounds and the certainty that, with Rylan gone and tensions high, order would be harder to maintain. Corvin pressed his hand to the dirt, picked up a faint, unfamiliar scent, and let a low growl slip from his lips. Trouble was coming, and he would be ready. Maris slipped through the shadows, skillful as a wraith. In the chaos of the last day, her diminutive presence was easily forgotten, just as she liked it. With Rylan gone and the pack divided, she found the perfect moment to vanish into the woods and make contact. She moved with confidence, rehearsing every word she'd deliver to Corbin. The fractures growing inside the enemy's stronghold, the trembling heart of the witch girl, the Alpha's wounded pride. Maris smiled to herself. Soon her real master would know everything. Darius poured a measure of whiskey and set it down in front of Keal, his gaze sharp but amiable. "You've seen how strong we could be together, Keal," Darius began, gesturing at the bustling house beyond. "Combine my people, your people, Lyra by your side. It's a legacy. Not just for us, but for everyone under these roofs." Keal met his eyes, playing at indifference. Power's only as strong as the trust that builds it. Darius grinned. "Trust grows in time. You're a smart wolf. You know the offer on the table isn't just about me. It's about what keeps the pack safe, the wealth, the peace. I'm offering you a future. All you have to do is take Lyra's hand." Later, in the dim hush of Keal's quarters, Lyra sat perched at the end of his bed, a silk robe clinging to her form. She gave him a tentative, hopeful smile. "You're always gone so early. I was hoping you'd let me keep you warm tonight." Keal stood in the doorway, his shadow long. He hesitated, searching her face for pretense. "Lyra, you don't have to—" She closed the gap between them, fingers tracing the edge of his shirt. I want you to be happy here, Keal. Darius always says it's my job to take care of what I want to call my mate someday." Her voice trembled, part innocence, part practiced ease. He closed his eyes, caught between truth and the mask he wore. "You deserve more than a promise, Lyra, but tonight I just need quiet." Lyra's smile faltered only a little. "Then I'll just lay here if you let me." "That's all." He nodded, letting her settle against him, heavy with the weight of secrets neither could name aloud.